a little bit if you have thicker thighs, like you might be here. This gives you height. You want it right there on your mid thigh. That's what this adjustment does. So you want to have this, that's why it floats. The pad floats a little bit, because as you move like this, you want the pad to float with you. It's not a stiff leg deadlift. It's more of an RDL style deadlift, very hip dominant. So as long as we lined up the leg height, the thickness of the thigh, the height, and then you just adjust this bottom piece, and that's going to really incorporate how far your feet go forward. And the further your feet go forward, really the more of a load it is on the glute, where if you go further back, it's going to load more hamstrings. So by here, my legs could pivot slightly, and just there's a little bit of float. And so I'm actually loading the glutes really hard at the top, versus in a good morning, I'd be loading them almost none at the top. So although the movement is the same as a good morning, or similar to a good morning, the load parameters are exactly inverse. So the loads are highest here. If they go down, the loads reduce because of the leverage arm. And I'm squeezing back up to the top, using all my glutes as my prime mover, not my hamstrings, but my mid back, my lumbar as a stability piece. So it's really, really good for, and the mat just locks you into position. That way I'm taking it off the bar in a loaded position, kind of like I would in a squat, versus coming out of the bottom. Now this piece is going to adjust up and down. That's going to go right across the back of my shoulders. That's going to give me my leverage arm. Now you also have the range limiter, so I could start the exercise or make the exercise load at different spots. Whereas where I'm now, when I'm in my vertical position, the arm is just a little bit past parallel to the ground, which actually means right here is the highest load, which is what I'm trying to do. The majority of sport is from here to here, whether it be jumping, moving, things like that. I'm not trying to get a load at this position because I'm never there in sport. I'm always here to here. So this is really have to squeeze the glutes to come through. Now, if I want to load more here for some reason, I could adjust this range limiter and make sure that loads at that position. So that's why the back attack works the way it does, why it was specifically designed for that. Then of course you have this safety feature that you could adjust up and down for a range limiter from a safety range limiter, although we rarely ever move it.
What about the pegs down here and how you can band load it?
Yeah, the pegs down here are going to allow for additional band load. And again, that's going to exacerbate what the load parameters of the back attack already are, which goes from lightest to heaviest. So I could exacerbate that and add stacking weight on there, accommodating resistance with the band load. But also I could do that to kill any type of momentum. So I could use this as like a speed lift or something that's a violent extension like an Olympic lift would be, but then I could make sure this piece doesn't jump off my back by using the band load. So we like how it feels with the band on there. It kind of stabilizes everything, but it also allows for you to not have to use as many plates as well.
And this is a mobile unit, right? You can move it around the weight room?
Yeah, it's a mobile unit. So you have, it's a pretty heavy unit, but you have two tip-up wheels and then a handle on the other side. That way, if you do have to move it, you can pick up right here, tilt it up and move it around one person. You have plate storage right there, so everything is one station. It's kind of it's very, very utilized in most of the strongest gyms in the world. You look at the strongest power lifters and the strongest strongmen in the world, all tend to have one. It's kind of been a secret weapon among that group. You don't hear about it much because it's a little bit off Broadway of what normally people think they need. But there's been a lot of anecdotal research anyway that's from a few of our customers that said they've been able to minimize hamstring injuries a great deal because this incorporates the glute so heavily instead of the hamstring, and you get the proper firing pattern of glute first, then hamstring, then contralateral QL going out from the hip. As Cal Dietz talks about, otherwise you have an implosion of power. As you extend, if you have the improper firing sequences, it goes hamstring, contralateral QL into the glute, and actually the power goes inward, and you lose a lot of power that's actually trying to produce onto the field. So by not necessarily training the hamstring for the hamstring to to have less injury, but training the glute more to fire the glute and make the glute the prime mover, you actually reduce hamstring injuries.